We're at the Hudson Cemetery today. Hudson is an unincorporated area of northwest Pasco County. It's this cemetery is a small. It's not abandoned, but it's not. There are some families that are being interred here, family members that are grandfathered in, if you will. But it's not just open to the general public. It's unique in that it's an old pioneer cemetery. First interment was 1878. It started in 1878. But it's right smack dab on US 19 and Hudson Avenue. And Hudson Avenue isn't the grand thoroughfare of the area, but of course 19 is, and it is right on 19. I pass by this thing all the time. I've been here once before. Always wanted to stop back, finally got a chance to. The Hudson family moved here in the late 19th century from North Florida, and before that from Alabama. They were the pioneer type. They just moved to homestead and farm, and when they were here, their daughter passed away at 16 years old, and they buried her in this ground, which is essentially their homestead, their family area. And eventually others started interring their kin here as well. This ground contains a plethora of a who's who of pioneer family descendants and pioneer families themselves from the earliest days of what became known as Hudson, unincorporated Hudson. We have the Knowles, Hayes, Hicks, Voorhees, and some others. But if you just go through this cemetery and you know this area, the street names and all sorts of area names, you'll recognize in these headstones. There are. Well, let's get started checking it out. There are Spanish-American War vets here. World War I, II, Vietnam, Civil War. Did I say Spanish-American War? I thought I did. I meant to. Korean War. So, other than, I don't see any Iraqi vets or Afghani vets, but there certainly are. With the exception of the Indian Wars, which I didn't see any of those. Every other war is represented here. And again, you have the whole panoply of pioneer families that moved here. And I guess you can see 19 is in the background there, very close, right on top of it. Up until very recently, this area was completely covered with bushes. I mean, there were bushes everywhere, all around. This fence is new, and the lack of bushes is new. You'd come by here before, you wouldn't even know there was a cemetery unless you knew what to look for. And then of course the vagrants would all be in here and doing their thing. And I guess having a cemetery is a vagrant magnet, because nobody ever comes here and bothers you. They just sort of lived here. But clearing this all out, putting this fence up, more or less, removed the attraction for those kind of people to be here. Here's our historic sign. Isaac W. and Amanda Hudson, settled Hudson community, Hudson Landing, first burial, daughter. Alabama, lived in Madison and Chipko before moving here, seeking a healthier climate. And we have a veterans memorial to the United States veterans here. And there's a listing of World War I and II veterans. O'Hay, Brady, and Equiville. I'm not butchering that too much, hopefully. The Hay family was prominent in this area. Members of that family served their country during the Civil War, and we see a gravestone here for that, commemorating that service. James Hay, Company C, 3rd Florida Infantry. Someone has, for reasons unknown, decided to put an American flag there. Current 50 stars American flag, no less. They just really don't care about learning history at all. They just sort of throw stuff around. Now we have the Mullins. And we're not going to stop at every gravestone, obviously. I typically never do. I mostly wanted to highlight the highlights. Okay, this is Alberta Hudson. Baby. Latona Hudson. Wiley Hudson. He lived a fairly decently long life. Don't know anything at all about him. Here is, and I don't know if this is the original stone. I'm gonna say no, but this is Ida Melissa Hudson, born 61 to 78. This is the original burial in this cemetery. Alfred L. Hudson. That's got to be a son. Here's Isaac W. 1892. Now we don't. That's the man himself. That's the guy that came here. We don't know what he did for business that caused this area to be known as Hudson Landing, but had something to do with the sea. Probably sponging. Sponging was a big thing up in here. I don't know for sure. Obviously, but that's a pretty educated guess. The Gillette family, Knowles. We see Knowles throughout this area, throughout this cemetery. There's a Woodman. That's a John Hay, Woodman of the World. And we know from previous videos what the Woodman significance is. There's the old wrought iron. Again, it's really hard even to hear because of the traffic in the background, so you get a feel for just how, I mean, this is literally right off of US 19, one of the busiest roads on the planet. And here's the old wrought iron Hudson Cemetery sign. So that's a pretty good view of the high points. I don't know if I got a Spanish-American War vet or not. Those are always pretty interesting. There weren't that many of them, and not like World War II. You find World War II vets everywhere. You literally can't walk through a cemetery of any size or breadth and not run into a World War II vet, at least one. There's probably a dozen in here. And there's a few World War I vets. You don't find that often either, or as often, simply because there weren't as many of those. I mean, in World War II, obviously the entire country mobilized to serve, and there were over 3 million men in uniform serving in some place. Here's Hicks. This Hicks was born in 63 and passed in 39, and that's a prominent name in this area. Hicks, Knowles. Oh, here we go. Here's Spanish American War vet. 1876 This is 1964. Reeves. This is kind of neat. There's no, the little sign has been removed, but there's this cool old helmet there. This guy was obviously some old biker dude. It's interesting, it says, let those who ride decide. I wonder if he passed away because he wasn't wearing a helmet. Who knows? Hatcher, that's another name that is seen around this part of the county. So we got a couple of Civil War vets, a couple of Spanish-American War vets. Very unusual. There's one Vietnam War vet I saw. And then a whole lot of World War II, a couple of World War I, some Korea. Korea's another one you don't see every day. So that's it for Hudson Cemetery. We're going to wrap it up. This is a fascinating old cemetery. Not abandoned, but not actively interring whomever. There are a few available spots for people who are related to some of these people, the families. I think I should mention too that there's an organization that took this over several years ago, a non-profit, the Hudson Cemetery Memorial, whatever, I don't even know the name of it, but they are attempting to raise funds, or in the process of raising funds, to do a GPS survey here, a ground penetrating survey, to find out who's buried as far as unmarked graves are concerned. You see a lot of open space here, and part of the purpose of doing that is to determine, you know, that there are unmarked graves, but also, because you can assume that in every one of these old cemeteries, there's unmarked graves. There are graves that were at one point covered with or marked by a wooden marker that has deteriorated, disintegrated, and is gone. So you can assume, and we don't know, we have it fenced off, but we don't know what's on the other side of the fences. And we don't know even if anything's in the middle of any of these roads. So, you know, we just have to, those are gone. But the ones that are in here, they're going to do some studies for. They're just trying to raise the money for it. And also, I think they want to see if there's any other opportunities to continue burials here. I don't know. And I don't know where the local black cemetery would be. And we know that blacks were never buried, rarely buried inside a white cemetery. They would have been buried. There were times when they were buried in a similar ground, adjacent ground, I should say, next to it, near it, something of that nature. But very rarely, in those days, interred in the exact same cemetery. And of course, that's a tragic commentary on humanity, but it is simply a historical fact. That's what else I was going to say. There are no complete records, centralized records of this cemetery, who's buried here and all that sort of thing. There are, I'm sure Find a Grave has come through and done, you know, they look on the markers and they try to tell who's who and what's what based on the markers, but that's not a history or a record, complete record of although it is a really good record, it's not a complete record of what exists. So in any event, we're going to wrap this bad boy up and head down the road for the day.